Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I would like to talk about the title Is Reformasi Dead? Has Anwar betrayed the rakyat of Malaysia? Now, there is a common understanding among most Malaysians, particularly the non-Malays, in following a lot of comments by columnists as well as by YouTubers who is always doing what I call Anwar bashing and also PH bashing. Everything that is done seems to be wrong. Now, for most of these people who have never held a political party, who have never held a position as a wakil rakyat or even worked in a government, they are very quick to point fingers about Reformasi being dead, as well as the idea that Anwar has not lived up to his promises. Now, in the beginning of Reformasi, I was there in the sense that I followed the difficulty of the first 10 years. I don't remember seeing the names of all those who are criticizing, whether they are the columnists in Malaysia Kini or in other newspapers, or these YouTubers who are so very popular and very clear in their criticisms that has no limit. And so the accusation that there is no fundamental reform being done by Pakatan Harapan, and that Anwar has betrayed the rakyat, as well as Reformasi is actually reformati, meaning it's dead even if it had existed. I have also explained in many of my videos and writings about what I think has happened. Basically what I said simply was that after 60 years or 40 years or 50 years of carrying the baggage of cronyism and corruption and a lot of the things with regard to the narrative of Malay supremacy, to change everything within 2 years, that's really not possible at all. And that is something which most people rejected, meaning they would say, look, you already have your power, you are the Prime Minister, then you should change. And again, I said in many of my writings, now when Mahathir came to power, he had the 2/3 majority with his own party, meaning his own coalition of Barisan Nasional, and that Pakatan Harapan in this time did not. And so and what's worse, they have to be friends with enemies. And so this is something which I have explained, but again, people say, no, once you're the Prime Minister, that's it, the buck stops there. Well, there is an interesting podcast done by my friend Vinodh Rajendran, who runs the Thegoodcastshow, and I recommend everyone to watch it, where he had interviewed Professor James Chin. Now, many of us know Professor James Chin is an eminent professor who is professor in University of Tasmania, and he is the foremost expert in politics in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, and his interviews or his opinions are sought after by very important media outlets as well as other parties. And I would like to summarize what James Chin has said, and I will give or I have given the link to the podcast for you to watch yourself. In this podcast, he talked about two things. One, to answer the question from Vinodh, is Reformasi dead? And has Anwar sort of betrayed the rakyat? And the other one is about Sabah election. And so I will summarize what James Chin has said. And the first one is that he said cronyism and corruption had begun way before Anwar Ibrahim. He did not start it, and so that's very important for us to actually put the context. Next, he said again the same thing that I said. Anwar did not win 2022. they fell short of 25 votes or to 25 seats to form a simple majority. And so he was asked to put up a government which is called the mixed government with enemies, with UMNO, with GPS, GRS, all of whom were their rivals in the election. Of course, there are other rivals, PAS and Perikatan and Bersatu. At first, the Agong asked the Perikatan Nasional to form the government with PH, but Muhyiddin arrogantly declined. But luckily, Zahid Hamidi had agreed, and so that's how we have unity government, of which Anwar has been appointed the Prime Minister of a mixed government or mixed party, of which most of them, or all of them in fact, are their rivals. And so thirdly, James Chin said that the two-third majority that Anwar has is actually a paper majority, meaning it looks good on paper, but it's not real power. Only Mahathir at one time held tremendous power when Abdullah Badawi won almost a landslide victory. Now that was real power. Why? Because the seats were all blue and only a few 12, 13 seats were just red during that election. So that is real power, and we must understand that power in the majority of parliament is very crucial. So in actual fact, Anwar does not really have the mandate, and this is the fourth thing that James Chin has said. He does not have the actual political hammer to make a lot of fundamental changes, and if he did or was able to, he had to do what we call maneuvering, and also it takes time. Now James Chin also said that in 2018 Mahathir had the mandate, not a two-third majority, but they had a comfortable majority to change some things. And what happened? He appointed Lim Guan Eng as the Minister of Finance, and he appointed a Christian who was Chief of Justice. And these two had tremendous backlash from the Malay. And so this comes into the situation where now I would add to that, not James Chin did not add this, what I'm going to say is about the Rome Statute as well as the ICET. And we remember that Mahathir wanted to go through with that, those two, and it was something that caused a lot of problems with the Malay community, of course riled up by UMNO and PAS as well as Bersatu at that time, and I think the civil servants also, and I have a family of teachers, and there's a lot of all the teachers were supporting UMNO, and that caused the government to retreat. What does that mean? It means that, according to James Chin, in order for you to make the changes, you not only need a two-third majority, you also need a significant support from the Malay society. In the last election, the PH only secured about 30% of the Malay votes, and the core votes are mostly with Perikatan Nasional now. But if the Malays had, if the Malay vote was about 50%, then with the two-third majority, change can go through. And this is something which I have witnessed. If we can even see the Kuil Hindu issue, which is terrible among the Malays, and some of them changing the name to Kuil Haram in the Google map, and also threatening Hindus, and also the KK Mat issue. We see the Molotov cocktail being thrown, and luckily there was no one hurt. And all of this shows significant Malay reaction. Now, to non-Malays, to expect reform immediately, right now, and all those fundamental reform, the so-called meritocracy, the so-called equal whatever opportunities, of course, as a Muslim and as a Malaysian, I think everyone deserves who is deserving. But I have watched even the young people, the Malays who are in universities like GAMIS, Gabungan Mahasiswa Islam, they are clearly reacting in a racist mindset like UMNO. Why? Because they have been bred in that. Now we also have the Islamic reform, and this is also causing a problem. Now, all this I am adding on to what James Chin has said, but James Chin did say you need more than 30% of the votes from the Malay community. If not, forget about doing any change, because it's not going to happen, and if it did, it will cause a lot of backlash. Then Anwar is said by James Chin to be preparing for the GE16, because if he is targeting change, then he has to make strategic changes, and that's why we see now the problems with the Rafizi, as well as the Tunku Zafro. These are all the things that perhaps Anwar is trying to maneuver, and some are saying that this is not fair. I don't see anything not fair in the election or the loss of Rafizi Ramli. It was an election. There was no proof that money had changed hands, or some problems with the digital way of doing votes. Where's the proof? Nothing. And Rafizi has become very popular bad-mouthing his own party. Why? For his own single political sake. Although he says this is for party, no, it's for him. And so this is what politics is. We can shout change because we are the head of an NGO like C4. You don't have to deal with other parties or other members who are totally in disagreement with you, or other parties who believe in race, or other parties who believe that their religion is better than yours. So we have the luxury of making a video from UK and saying this is bad, this is parti keluarga rakyat, all sort of thing, without even having any what we call malu, a sense of malu, embarrassment, that they themselves, if put in the same position, could not do a single thing in the context of our Malaysian situation, with our history, our baggage of narrative as well as perspective. Finally, James Chin had said that the Anwar now that you see is not the real Anwar. If you want to see the real Anwar, then he must be given a bigger mandate. And then you can see the Anwar. And if he does things and this thing fail, clearly we can say that he failed. But here, according to the summary, when the podcaster Vinodh Rajendran tried to imply that perhaps Anwar and PH not doing their job, James Chin clearly said you need to look at the content. And that has been always the problem of our Malaysian people. They have good intention, they want change, but they forget that there is this context. What context? Historical context, the baggage of history, what we have inherited. And also the present context, where you have different political parties, and also not a Malay majority situation, because this is the real thing that is going to happen, that you need the two-third majority, and you need also a Malay majority supporting you. And if not, it's just not going to happen. But I have always said that one other thing that we need to happen in order for change is for us all to change our way of thinking, give Anwar a chance with a new mandate, and then we can see if we're not going to give Anwar another chance, then who are we going to give it to? Can we hope for Khairi Jamaluddin and Rafizi Ramli to combine and become a third force? Please. If there is one, then maybe we should support that one. But at the moment, this is all that you have, which in all of this political party, do you consider the best party? Some will say the DAP, but the DAP cannot lead and make the fundamental changes unless they have support from the Malay partners. GPS, we see a lot of good things Sarawak is doing with Sabang Joe, but can they lead Malaysia? They're always talking about Sarawak, and rightfully so for them. So, which is it? And so if we do not have an alternative, please think about what James Chin have said in terms of what is the context. How would you also be in the situation of Anwar and PH in terms of trying to drive change? So with that, I hope you take some time to watch the Thegoodcastshow with an excellent podcaster, Vinodh Rajendran, talking to Professor James Chin. And that is something that we, again, as I said, need to learn and unlearn so that we can play a better part instead of just complaining and pointing out mistakes of which it not necessarily that we ourselves can do better when we are presented with the same situation. Thank you very much. Hi everybody. If you would like to own my book and have my signature as well as a personal note from me, please follow the instruction. Thank you.